A corporation reports record growth. Executives promise a bright future. Stock prices look stable. But behind closed doors, bankruptcy lawyers are already drafting paperwork. From 139-year-old food giants to billion-dollar tech darlings, America's most trusted companies are quietly preparing for collapse. Today, we're exposing 15 major corporations on the brink of bankruptcy, and why your job, your savings, and your investments are directly at risk. Number 15. Big Lots. Let's start with the discount retailer that once promised working families affordable essentials. Big Lots built its entire reputation on value. Those bright yellow signs became beacons for budget-conscious shoppers across America. Working families stretched every dollar inside those stores. They trusted the brand to deliver quality products at prices they could afford. But behind those cheerful storefronts, the numbers were telling a very different story. In September 2024, Big Lots filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. And the bleeding hasn't stopped since that initial filing. Over 600 stores have permanently shuttered their doors. Steel security gates pulled down for the final time. Parking lots that once bustled with weekend shoppers now sit completely empty. Employees who dedicated years to the company were left scrambling for severance packages that may never actually arrive. The financial devastation is staggering when you examine the actual numbers. Big Lots reported a $94.4 million loss in a single quarter. Same-store sales collapsed by 15.4% year over year. That's not a temporary slowdown or a bump in the road. That's a company in absolute freefall. If you held Big Lots stock in your retirement portfolio, hoping it would help fund your golden years, you watched that investment evaporate in real time, penny by penny, dollar by dollar, until nothing remained. If you worked there, trusted the company with your livelihood, your job vanished without so much as a warning email. The promise of everyday low prices masked a company drowning in unsustainable debt, hemorrhaging customers to online giants like Amazon and Temu, who could undercut prices and deliver convenience. Big Lots couldn't match. Working Americans trusted this brand with their hard-earned money. That trust was fundamentally misplaced, and it's a pattern we're going to see repeated over and over again throughout this list. Coming in at number 14. Party City was the place where America celebrated every milestone worth marking. Birthdays, graduations, holidays, baby showers, wedding receptions, retirement parties. For decades, this was the undisputed one-stop shop for celebration supplies. Generations of families walked through those doors to pick out decorations, balloons, and costumes. But the confetti has finally settled, and the stores are going dark across the entire country. Party City filed for bankruptcy for the second time in its corporate history. And this time, there is absolutely no comeback waiting in the wings. The company announced it will close all 738 locations nationwide. Every single store. Not a strategic reduction. Not a market consolidation. Complete and total shutdown. Walk into any surviving location right now, and you'll witness the grim reality firsthand. Deflating balloons drifting through empty aisles. Help wanted signs torn down and replaced with store-closing banners. Shelves picked nearly clean by liquidation shoppers hunting for deals on whatever remains. CEO Barry Litwin stood before cameras and admitted the company simply could not overcome its mounting financial struggles, despite their very best efforts. Those were his exact words. Very best efforts. But let's examine what those best efforts actually produced in the real world. Thousands of employees losing their jobs right before the holiday season when they needed income most. Vendors and suppliers who are owed millions of dollars they may never see repaid. Small business owners who relied on Party City wholesale programs left without a supplier. And the communities that depended on Party City locations for local employment, now staring at vacant storefronts and shattered economic promises. The party is officially over for this American retail institution, and the cleanup from this collapse is going to take years to complete. At number 13, we have Jo-Ann Incorporated. The craft store giant promised creativity, community, and affordable supplies for the millions of Americans who love making things with their own hands. Jo-Ann built a retail empire, serving DIY enthusiasts from coast to coast. Fabric by the yard, yarn in every color imaginable, sewing machines, quilting supplies, scrapbooking materials, everything you could possibly need to create something beautiful with your own two hands sat on those well-organized shelves. During the pandemic lockdowns, business absolutely exploded. Americans stuck at home desperately picked up new hobbies to stay sane and productive. Knitting became a national obsession. Quilting circles went virtual. Parents did craft projects with homebound children. Joanne seemed perfectly positioned to capture all that pent-up creative demand. Revenue soared. The future looked incredibly bright. But the pandemic boom transformed into a devastating bust, faster than anyone could have predicted. Joanne filed for bankruptcy protection twice in rapid succession. The first filing came in March 2024. The second followed just months later in January 2025. Now, over 850 stores across America are closing their doors permanently. But here's what really stings for the loyal customers who supported this brand for decades. People who purchased gift cards, intending to use them for future projects, are being told those cards are now completely worthless. Returns on recent purchases are being flatly refused. Store credit has evaporated overnight. The company that built its entire marketing identity around encouraging you to make something beautiful is now creating something profoundly ugly. A tangled mess of broken contracts, abandoned employees, and betrayed customers. If you invested in craft retail believing it was somehow recession-proof or pandemic-proof, your money has vanished. If you worked the cutting counter, helped customers select the perfect fabric for their daughter's prom dress, offered advice on which pattern would work best, your livelihood has been ripped away. Joanne's spectacular collapse serves as a stark warning to everyone watching this video. Pandemic darlings can transform into post-pandemic disasters literally overnight, and the workers who trusted those companies are always the ones left holding the empty bag. Number 12 is Forever 21. Once upon a time, Forever 21 was the undisputed crown jewel of fast fashion retail. The company promised young shoppers trendy clothes at prices that seemed almost impossibly low. Mall corridors across America were absolutely packed with teenagers and young adults carrying those iconic yellow shopping bags. It was the place to be seen, the store that helped define an entire generation's approach to style and self-expression. But those yellow bags are empty now, and so are the stores that once overflowed with customers. Forever 21 filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection for the second time in March 2025. Company executives pointed to crushing competition from online fast fashion giants like Shein and Temu. These overseas retailers can manufacture and ship trendy clothing directly to American doorsteps at prices domestic retailers simply cannot match. The arithmetic became impossible. The result has been absolutely devastating for workers and communities. Every single American Forever 21 location has been permanently closed. Not a strategic retreat from underperforming markets. Complete withdrawal from the entire United States. The company's official bankruptcy filings listed somewhere between $1 billion and $5 billion in outstanding liabilities, against assets valued at just $100 to $500 million. That's not a temporary cash flow problem or a rough quarter. That's a financial crater. So deep recovery was never really possible. Thousands of retail workers found themselves suddenly unemployed. Many were young people just entering the workforce for the first time. They learned a brutal lesson about corporate loyalty. No severance packages, no advance warning, just locked doors and empty promises. The allure of affordable fashion came with a hidden cost that nobody advertised. Jobs that disappeared as quickly as last season's trends. And now mall landlords from California to Florida are desperately scrambling to fill those massive vacant retail spaces that once buzzed with eager shoppers. Now at number 11, we examine Hooters. For more than 4 decades, Hooters occupied a unique space in American culture. The restaurant chain promised wings, cold beer, big screen sports, and a reliably good time. It transcended being merely a restaurant chain to become something approaching a cultural phenomenon, a distinctly American institution that everyone recognized regardless of whether they ever actually dined there. But behind the famous orange shorts and those iconic chicken wings, this company was quietly bleeding money at an alarming rate. Hooters filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in April 2025. The official explanation tells a story of a legacy brand that fundamentally failed to evolve with changing times. Sales declined steadily year after year. Customer tastes shifted toward healthier options and different dining experiences. Competition intensified dramatically from newer, trendier chains like Wingstop and Buffalo Wild Wings that captured younger demographics. The brand that once seemed completely untouchable discovered it had no immunity to market forces. Over 40 individual locations shuttered permanently during 2024 alone. More restaurants continue closing as you watch this video. Rising food costs devoured already razor-thin profit margins. Labor expenses climbed relentlessly, while customer foot traffic moved in the opposite direction. And perhaps most damaging, an overall brand image that felt increasingly dated and out of touch actively repelled younger consumers, who might have become the next generation of loyal customers. Employees who invested years building careers within the Hooters organization are now frantically updating their resumes and searching job boards. Servers who built genuine relationships with regular customers. Managers who worked their way up through the ranks. Kitchen staff who perfected those signature recipes. All of them suddenly cast adrift. Corporate leadership promises to reinvent and re-energize the brand. But for the countless workers and franchisees who already lost everything, that damage cannot be undone. But everything we've covered so far is nothing compared to what's still coming on this list. Most people have absolutely no idea how many household name brands are secretly teetering on the very edge of complete financial collapse. The companies still ahead will genuinely shock you. Number 10 brings us to Rite Aid. Rite Aid promised something fundamentally important to American communities: accessible healthcare on practically every corner. For decade after decade, ordinary Americans filled their prescriptions at these familiar stores. They bought cold medicine during flu season. They picked up bandages after minor accidents. They trusted their neighborhood Rite Aid pharmacy completely. It was more than a retail transaction. It was a relationship built on the assumption that the pharmacy would always be there when needed. But neighborhood pharmacies are vanishing from the American landscape. Rite Aid filed for bankruptcy protection for the second time in May 2025. Pay attention to that timeline. This second bankruptcy came just 8 months after the company emerged from its first bankruptcy proceeding. 8 months. That's how fast the supposedly restructured company collapsed again. And this time around, there will be no miraculous recovery story. The company is systematically closing every single remaining store location. Each and every one. Assets are being sold off piece by piece to pharmacy rivals like CVS and Walgreens, who are picking the carcass clean. Massive corporate layoffs devastated the company headquarters in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. Licensed pharmacists who dedicated their entire professional careers to serving local communities are now standing in unemployment lines. But here's the dimension of this collapse that should genuinely concern every single American. In rural areas where Rite Aid represented the only pharmacy for miles in any direction, residents are now facing an impossible question. Where exactly will they obtain their essential medications? Heart pills, diabetes treatments, blood pressure regulators, life-sustaining prescriptions suddenly have no local source. The company promised a careful restructuring process that would stabilize operations and preserve service. What they actually delivered was complete liquidation dressed up in corporate jargon. If you held Rite Aid stock or bonds in your portfolio, those investments are now worthless paper. Why do you think these companies keep promising explosive growth while their debt spirals completely out of control? Is anyone actually watching the financial books anymore? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments below. Number 9 on our countdown is 23andMe. This company made extraordinary promises about unlocking the deepest secrets hidden within your DNA. Your ancestral origins stretching back centuries. Your hidden health risks waiting to manifest. Your unique genetic potential that makes you who you are. When 23andMe went public through its 2021 IPO, the company commanded a staggering valuation of $6 billion. Investors genuinely believed they were funding the future of personalized medicine, a revolutionary new world, where understanding your individual genetic code could help you live longer, healthier, more informed lives. It sounded like science fiction becoming reality. Just 4 years later, that collective belief has completely evaporated. 23andMe filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in March 2025, carrying approximately $2.3 billion in accumulated debt. The stock price collapsed by an almost incomprehensible 98% from its peak valuation. 98% of shareholder value simply vanished. But here's the dimension of this corporate failure that should genuinely terrify every American who ever used their service. This company currently holds the genetic data of nearly 15 million individual Americans. Your most intimate biological information imaginable. The molecular blueprint that determines who you are at the most fundamental level. Information about disease predispositions, family connections, and traits you might not even know you carry. Following a 2023 data breach that exposed personal information belonging to 6.9 million users, congressional investigators launched formal inquiries, examining what exactly happens to your irreplaceable genetic information when the company holding it declares bankruptcy and begins auctioning off assets. Who gains ownership of your DNA profile? Which corporations or foreign entities might purchase access? The cutting-edge science company that promised revolutionary healthcare insights couldn't even protect its own customers' sensitive data from hackers, let alone sustain a viable business model. If you spit into one of their tubes and mailed it off hoping to discover something meaningful about your heritage, your unique genetic information is now part of bankruptcy auction proceedings. Number 8 is the Hudson's Bay Company. Hudson's Bay Company holds a distinction that no other company on this list can claim. It was the oldest continuously operating company anywhere in North America, founded in the year 1670. That's an almost incomprehensible 355 years of unbroken commercial activity. This company witnessed and survived revolutionary wars that birthed new nations, economic depressions that destroyed entire industries, 2 devastating world wars that reshaped global civilization, market disruptions and technological revolutions that rendered countless competitors obsolete. For more than 3 centuries, Hudson's Bay somehow adapted to whatever challenges emerged and endured when others failed. But it could not survive 2025. The iconic department store chain filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in March of this year. Official filings listed approximately $3.7 billion in assets weighed against $3.2 billion in outstanding liabilities. Every single store location has now been completely liquidated, gone, emptied out. 355 years of accumulated heritage reduced to clearance sales and empty shelves. The company's intellectual property portfolio, representing centuries of brand recognition and commercial reputation, was ultimately sold to Canadian Tire Corporation for a mere $30 million. $30 million. That's a tiny fraction of what the company was worth in its prime. A fraction of what the brand name alone should command in any reasonable market. The promise of luxury retail excellence. The heritage of centuries spanning continuous commerce. All of it reduced to a desperate fire sale where the only buyers were bargain hunters. Employees who believed they were working for a company with unmatched historical staying power found themselves suddenly jobless and shocked. They thought they had something stable, something that had lasted longer than the United States of America itself had existed. If 355 years of proven survival couldn't protect Hudson's Bay Company from bankruptcy, what possibly makes you think your current employer is somehow safe? If this video is helping you understand what's really happening in the American economy right now, take a second to hit that subscribe button. It's completely free, and it means you'll never miss these important breakdowns when they drop. Number 7 on our list is At Home Group. At Home Group built its business model around a compelling promise. Affordable home decor for American families looking to transform their living spaces without completely destroying their budgets. These weren't small boutique shops. They were massive warehouse-style stores, stretching across enormous footprints. Every location packed floor to ceiling with furniture selections, decorative accessories, and seasonal items galore. Whatever you needed to upgrade your home environment sat waiting somewhere on those sprawling shelves. During the pandemic years, this business model seemed absolutely brilliant. Everyone was suddenly stuck at home for months on end. Redecorating became a national obsession. Home improvement projects exploded in popularity. People wanted their suddenly omnipresent living spaces to feel fresh, comfortable, and personalized. At Home appeared perfectly positioned to ride that massive wave of consumer demand straight to sustained profitability. But those cavernous warehouses are emptying out rapidly now. At Home Group filed for Chapter 11, bankruptcy protection in June 2025. The official filing listed more than $1 billion in accumulated liabilities, threatening to sink the entire enterprise. Company executives cited multiple contributing factors in their bankruptcy explanations. Rising interest rates made borrowing prohibitively expensive for both the company and its customers. Declining consumer spending as persistent inflation squeezed household budgets meant fewer shopping trips. And the crushing debt burden the company accumulated during aggressive expansion couldn't be serviced once revenue contracted. Store closures are accelerating throughout the country. Workers who devoted themselves to stocking those endless shelves and helping eager customers design their dream homes are now confronting unemployment. The home improvement boom that defined those strange pandemic years has definitively collapsed, and the companies that borrowed heavily to expand their footprint and capture that fleeting demand are drowning in the debt they took on to chase growth. If you currently work in retail, any retail sector whatsoever, this represents your clearest warning. Signal yet. Even massive stores with seemingly endless inventory and broad customer appeal cannot survive when the debt collectors start calling. Number 6 is Del Monte Foods. For 139 years, Del Monte Foods represented an unshakable staple in American kitchens nationwide. Canned fruits, canned vegetables, tomato products, and more. The kind of reliable pantry essentials that filled your grandmother's kitchen shelves, your mother's kitchen shelves, and probably your own kitchen shelves right now. Generation after generation of American families trusted Del Monte to deliver consistent quality, basic nutrition, and solid value for their grocery dollars. But the metaphorical cans are rusting. Del Monte Foods filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in July 2025. The bankruptcy filings reported somewhere between $1 billion and $10 billion in accumulated liabilities threatening to overwhelm the company entirely. What exactly went wrong at a brand this established? Consumer preferences shifted dramatically away from traditional canned goods toward fresh produce and healthier prepared alternatives. Grocery inflation squeezed family budgets and pushed cost-conscious shoppers toward even cheaper store-brand alternatives that deliver essentially identical products at lower price points. And the steel tariffs that went into effect in June 2025 are actively driving up manufacturing costs for every single can Del Monte produces. The company made a catastrophic strategic miscalculation. They dramatically overproduced during the pandemic years, confidently expecting elevated demand to continue indefinitely. It most certainly did not. Now, Del Monte warehouses are sitting on absolute mountains of unsold inventory with no clear path to profitability. Cash hemorrhages daily. Executives scramble desperately for potential buyers willing to take on the mess. Nearly 3,000 employees throughout the organization face deeply uncertain futures as the restructuring process unfolds. A 139-year-old American food brand couldn't adapt quickly enough to changing consumer tastes and market realities. Now it's fighting for basic corporate survival. Consider the implications carefully. If Del Monte can fall, a company that has been feeding American families since before the automobile was even invented, no company anywhere is truly safe from disruption. Isn't it genuinely strange how these failing companies consistently blame external economic conditions, while their departing executives simultaneously collect millions of dollars in golden parachute severance packages? Who exactly is paying the real price in these situations? Share your thoughts in the comments. Number 5 on our countdown is Sunnova Energy. Sunnova Energy sold Americans an inspiring vision of a cleaner, greener future powered by the sun itself. Rooftop solar panels converting free sunlight into electricity. Battery storage. Systems providing independence from unreliable power grids. Freedom from constantly rising utility bills that seem to climb every single year. At its operational peak, Sunnova ranked as the second largest installer of residential solar systems anywhere in America. Environmental investors poured money in believing they were funding the sustainable future. Homeowners trusted Sunnova with their energy independence dreams. They signed extensive long-term contracts fully expecting decades of electricity savings and reliable service. But the sun has definitively set on this particular solar giant. Sunnova Energy filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in June 2025, carrying a truly staggering $8.9 billion in accumulated debt obligations. The company's available cash reserves totaled just $13.5 million at the time of filing. That's not nearly enough liquid capital to operate for even a single month. Over 55% of the entire workforce, representing more than 700 individual employees, received immediate layoff notices. The Department of Energy formally terminated a $3 billion federal loan guarantee that was supposed to support the company's continued growth and expansion plans. Rising interest rates across the economy made financing new solar installations prohibitively expensive for ordinary American homeowners. Policy uncertainty under changing political administrations scared away lenders who couldn't reliably predict what regulatory environment would exist 5 or 10 years down the road. And the homeowners who signed those long-term service contracts with Sunnova are now asking difficult questions nobody wants to answer. Who exactly will service their rooftop systems when something inevitably breaks? Who will honor the warranties they were promised? Who will ensure their lights stay on? The green energy revolution that Sunnova promised has transformed into a financial nightmare for thousands of families now stuck with equipment and no reliable support. Number 4 is Wolfspeed Incorporated. Wolfspeed Incorporated was supposed to represent the bright technological future of American semiconductor manufacturing. The company specialized in advanced silicon carbide chips, specifically designed for electric vehicles. Power systems optimized for the emerging artificial intelligence revolution, the fundamental building blocks of tomorrow's most important technologies. Company leadership promised investors they were perfectly positioned to ride an unstoppable wave of technological transformation, sweeping across every industry. At its market peak, Wolfspeed commanded an impressive $12 billion market capitalization. Wall Street analysts loved the growth story. Technology enthusiasts celebrated the American innovation. The future seemed brilliantly bright for domestic chip manufacturing. But that promising wave crashed violently against harsh economic reality. Wolfspeed filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in June 2025. The company sought court approval to reduce its crushing debt load by approximately $4.6 billion. What exactly went wrong with such a promising technology company? Wolfspeed expanded manufacturing capacity far too aggressively and far too quickly. They built expensive production facilities they ultimately couldn't fill with actual customer orders. They watched helplessly as overseas competitors undercut their pricing with cheaper alternative products. The American semiconductor industry, which national security experts consistently identify as a critical strategic advantage for the United States in global competition, is increasingly littered with corporate casualties. Wolfspeed's failure transcends being merely a business story. It represents a genuine national security concern that should worry policymakers at the highest levels. Every American chip-making company that collapses means increased dependence on foreign manufacturers, more vulnerability embedded throughout critical supply chains, greater reliance on international competitors who may not prioritize American interests. If you invested hard-earned money in the promised technology revolution, believing that American semiconductor companies would inevitably lead the way forward, Wolfspeed's sudden collapse should keep you awake worrying at night. Make sure you stick around for what's still coming. Number 1 on this countdown is the corporation that absolutely everyone assumed was completely untouchable. The company that seemed too massive, too deeply established, too fundamentally important to ever possibly fail. And they were catastrophically wrong. Number 3 is Bar Louie. Bar Louie marketed itself as the perfect, sophisticated neighborhood hangout for discerning adults. Craft cocktails mixed by skilled bartenders. Upscale bar food that elevated beyond typical pub fare. A vibrant, energetic atmosphere where young professionals could decompress after demanding workdays. For years, the chain expanded aggressively into new markets, becoming a recognizable fixture in suburban shopping centers and trendy urban neighborhoods across the country. They successfully filled a specific market niche, not quite a casual dive bar, not quite formal fine dining, something appealing in between that felt simultaneously accessible and fashionably trendy. But those once crowded bar stools sit empty now throughout remaining locations. Bar Louie filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection for the second time in March 2025. pay close attention to that timeline. This represented their second bankruptcy filing in just 5 years. 5 years. That's the entire duration their supposed recovery lasted before the company collapsed again under accumulated financial pressures. The company closed dozens of individual locations scattered throughout the country. Bartenders who had perfected signature cocktail recipes and built genuine personal relationships with loyal regular customers found themselves suddenly unemployed without warning. Servers who knew the exact preferences of their Tuesday night crowd lost steady income overnight. Rising labor costs made adequate staffing increasingly expensive. Changing consumer habits kept potential customers home, streaming content instead of going out for drinks. Competition from authentic local independent bars offered more genuine experiences at more competitive prices. Bar Louie was eventually purchased out of bankruptcy proceedings by new ownership groups. But the extensive damage already inflicted on longtime employees and trusting investors cannot be reversed. 2 separate bankruptcies within 5 years. That's not simple bad luck or unforeseeable market conditions. That's failed management making the same fundamental mistakes twice. And predictably, the people who ultimately paid the steepest price weren't the executives who made those catastrophic decisions. Number 2 on our countdown is Canoo promised nothing less than a complete revolution in electric vehicle design and manufacturing. The company showcased futuristic vehicle designs that looked genuinely unlike anything else currently on American roads. They claimed revolutionary proprietary technology that would fundamentally transform how Americans thought about personal transportation and commercial delivery fleets. The partnership announcements seemed incredibly impressive on paper. NASA signed agreements to explore using Canoo vehicles. The United States Department of Defense expressed official interest. Retail giant Walmart committed to purchasing vehicles for their delivery operations. These institutional names suggested legitimacy and scale that attracted serious investment capital. Celebrity-connected venture funds poured substantial money into the enterprise. The electric future looked genuinely promising, but that heavily promoted future never actually arrived. Canoo filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in January 2025. Pay careful attention to that specific classification. This wasn't Chapter 11 reorganization, where a struggling company attempts to restructure debts and emerge as a functioning business. This was Chapter 7 liquidation, complete termination. The company is finished, done, permanently gone. Despite successfully raising hundreds of millions of dollars in investment capital from excited backers, Canoo reported just $886,000 in actual revenue for the entire 2023 fiscal year. $886,000 against accumulated losses, totaling $1.5 billion. Those impressive high-profile partnerships quietly evaporated one by one. Vehicles were never delivered to customers in any meaningful production numbers. The grandiose promises made to investors, to dedicated employees, to government partners were ultimately nothing but marketing vapor. Hot air generated by executives who collected investor money and produced almost nothing tangible in return. If you bought into the electric vehicle excitement and invested your savings in Canoo, believing in the inevitable future of electric transportation, your money has completely vanished. The electric vehicle revolution is genuinely happening, but it's claiming corporate casualties along the way. Number 1, Purdue Pharma. Purdue Pharma didn't merely fail as a commercial enterprise. This company devastated an entire nation and left behind a death toll that continues climbing to this day. The company aggressively marketed OxyContin as a safe and effective solution for chronic pain management. They promised doctors could prescribe this powerful opioid medication with complete confidence. They assured patients this was a responsible path to relief from genuine suffering. What they actually delivered was the deadliest drug epidemic in American history. Hundreds of thousands of Americans died from opioid overdoses directly linked to medications that Purdue Pharma relentlessly pushed onto patients and prescribing physicians. Internal company documents later revealed in litigation showed executives knew the addiction risks they were creating. They understood the devastation their products would cause. And they marketed OxyContin anyway because the profits were astronomical. In 2025, Purdue Pharma filed a new bankruptcy plan designed to finalize a $7.4 billion opioid settlement with affected communities. But let's be absolutely clear about something. No amount of money can bring back the lives lost to this epidemic. No legal settlement can possibly undo the families permanently torn apart by addiction. The children who grew up without parents who overdosed. The parents who buried children they couldn't save. The communities hollowed out by addiction, despair, and economic devastation. The Sackler family, which owned Purdue Pharma throughout the crisis, extracted billions of dollars in personal profits before the company finally collapsed under legal pressure. They walked away personally wealthy beyond imagination, while American communities were systematically destroyed, while hospital emergency rooms overflowed with overdose cases night after night, while county morgues ran out of space to store the bodies. If you lost someone you loved to opioid addiction, you understand this isn't merely a bankruptcy story about corporate finances. It's a story of corporate greed so profound it defies comprehension. Regulatory failure at every level that allowed a single company to poison America for profit, and the devastating human cost when quarterly profits are prioritized over human lives. Purdue Pharma represents everything fundamentally wrong with American corporate culture, and the settlement, however large it sounds, will never be enough. It can never be enough to address what was done. Not. Every corporation is what it seems on the surface. Some are quietly preparing to collapse behind closed doors, while publicly telling investors and employees that everything is perfectly fine. Your job, your retirement savings, your investment portfolio, all of it could be at serious risk from companies that look completely stable on the outside but are rotting from within. The warning signs are there if you know where to look. Subscribe now, and if you're watching on TV, tap your remote, so you never get blindsided by these hidden corporate dangers again.